Want to get your reaction to the Texas Democrats who fled their own state on a private jet filled with beer and Festivus in order to prevent the GOP from passing voting integrity laws. I mean, what do we make of this, where you have lawmakers not only flouting state law, but then getting the support of the individuals in D.C.? They've effectively fled to the Capitol to evade their core responsibility to the constituents.
Well, yes. And by the way, not a one of them had on a mask. So they were flying maskless, if you will. But I was pleased to hear Governor Abbott say that once they return to the state, they will be arrested and they will be taken to the state capitol to complete their duties. So they may be having their moment in the sun right now, and they may feel very festive with how they are running away from their duties. But what they have to realize is that they are elected by the people to represent them. And they should be there, even if they disagree with the proposals. It is important that they be there to represent the people that elected them to do their job. And they're not paying them to run away from their job, much less on a chartered jet full of beer and snacks and flying to D.C. for a couple of days to stay. And hopefully, I think the word was they were hopeful they were going to get a White House meeting.
Well, it will be interesting to see if that happens. But what about the misinformation floating around about all of these voter integrity efforts taking place in these states? You have Georgia, Florida, Iowa, and Arkansas that have passed voter integrity laws. The effort in Texas, the effort to stymie that there. What about that?
Yeah, and Heather, that's the important part of this, regardless of the antics of some elected representatives. And we should have laws that make it easier to vote but harder to cheat. And we should have laws that preserve one person, one vote.
Absolutely. It's interesting. The Democrats are so interested in the coercion of individuals when it comes to abortion rights or trans rights for the youth, and yet somehow they don't seem to care about the coercion of the elderly or the poor when it comes to our elections and making sure that we don't have people harvesting ballots all across the countryside. But I do want to pivot to the crisis evolving in Cuba. We know you've been quite vocal about your support for that. I want to play this soundbite and then get back to you.
We're answering the phones, getting email, and hearing a lot from you all about what is going on in Cuba. Let me tell you this, we stand with the people of Cuba who are fighting for rights, who are fighting for freedom, who are tired of 62 years of a dictator, and we will continue to support them in their effort. The Biden administration needs to come out. They need to draw a line in the sand. They need to make certain that the Cuban president understands you cannot fire on your people.
Wise words there from a member of Congress. We don't actually see it, but Senator, talk to us a little bit about why you're so passionate about this fight and why in many ways the silence of AOC and the misdirection of Jen Psaki speak for itself.
Yes, it does. And, you know, it's been so interesting that the Democratic Socialists of America, as they term themselves, the Squad, and a couple of others, they are silent on this and supporting the people of Cuba. I have supported the people of China as they have stood against the Chinese Communist Party, the Hong Kong freedom fighters as they have fought back. And likewise, we are supporting the people of Cuba as they push for freedom. Here is the thing, Joe. We need to remember, Cuba is 90 miles off the coast of Florida. And we have people in the streets in Cuba. And many Cuban Americans are cheering for them to push for freedom. And they are actually using a technology called Siphon. And last year, I had authored the Open Technology Authorization Act, and this allowed some innovation. There's a platform that if your government is cutting off access to the internet, you can use this and still get access to the internet. And as of yesterday, there were 146,000 Cubans that were using this. So it's good to see these freedom-loving Cubans using this technology that the American taxpayer has paid for, making it available. And they are able to continue to communicate and to carry out their protest for freedom. And the admonition there, the words to the president of Cuba, that once he called for thugs to go to the streets and sending his revolutionaries to the streets to take action, it is important for them to realize you cannot open fire on your people. Yeah. And this protest is going to carry out. We hope that it leads Cuba to democracy and to freedom, and that finally, after 62 years of abusive dictatorial regimes, they will finally be able to be a free and open society.
What other steps do you think that the United States should take? Should we send in troops to assist the protesters, as the mayor of Miami suggested the other day? And what about sanctions relief? Well,
I think sanctions, you're spot on there. The sanctions are going to be the first thing that should be looked at. But what we do need is to have a president of the United States who is resolute and who sends a very clear message that we are going to stand by these protesters and that we are going to support them. They are waving in the streets the symbol of freedom that they most relate to, and that is the flag of the United States of America. I think that next you will see them begin to talk about sanctions on some of the Cubans, and then probably you're going to see a push to get relief, food, water, resources to these individuals in Cuba who are starving.
Yeah, but how do you make sure that they get the relief when that is our intention, to make sure that they do, and not the sources that are actually keeping it from them?
Yes, and Heather, that is always the problem. And always the concern when we send relief. And that is why USAID and Red Cross and others are generally there to help to facilitate.
All right. Senator Marsha Blackburn, thank you very much for joining us on some very important topics today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.